The games industry is filled with a ton of promising and financially lucrative IPs, and as such, fans are accustomed to getting sequels to their favorite games. However, prequels are less popular, but much like sequels, they do vary wildly in quality. To that effect, here are 13 of the most divisive single-player prequels of all time. God of War Ascension. God of War Ascension showcases the story of series protagonist Kratos as he fights all those who oppose him for breaking his blood oath to Ares. While the game is considered a great one by many, others thought that the QTE heavy combat and the over-the-top violence that catapulted the series to great heights at one point were now becoming stale and required a major rethinking going forward. Resident Evil Zero. Resident Evil Zero was released in 2002 for the GameCube and served as a prequel to the two PlayStation 1 games that came before. Set against the ominous, spooky, and most importantly, pre-rendered backdrop of Ecliptic Express, the game sees players controlling both Rebecca and Billy as they work together to survive the plethora of horrors that hide within the game's several locations. The game featured a revamped item system, which was a major point of divisiveness among fans at the time, alongside the clunky but innovative partner system. Gears of War Judgment. Set before the events of the mainline entries in the franchise, Gears of War Judgment takes players on a series of missions as a COG team recalls some previous operations. The game was a tighter and self-contained experience rather than the blockbuster and bombastic action the mainline series offered. The levels were smaller and were fewer in number, and even the multiplayer didn't shake up much of the formula. Gears of War Judgment received mostly favorable reviews, although many fans felt hesitant to pay full price for this prequel, ultimately making it a divisive entry in this otherwise consistent franchise. Borderlands the Pre-Sequel. Borderlands, the pre-sequel, takes all elements that worked in previous entries of the franchise, loads of randomly generated guns, a script filled to the brim with hilarious jokes, loads of content, and dumps it all into a zero-gravity environment. The story revolves around the primary antagonist of Borderlands 2, Jack, as he tries to escape a space station and explore the galaxy in search of the Vault. The gameplay is inarguably slower paced and more methodical as players have to keep their tabs on their oxygen levels at all times, which makes the entry an ultimately divisive one among fans of the franchise. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain was released in 2015 and instantly became a hit amongst both fans and critics with the game's use of its open-world sandbox to create a highly dynamic web of interweaving systems that constantly challenges players to alter strategies on the fly. However, what makes it divisive among hardcore fans of the franchise is its turbulent development, which led to the departure of series creator Hideo Kojima from Konami, which ultimately left a mark on the final product. The story felt disjointed, and swaths of content were repeated in the latter half of the game among a litany of other things that significantly soured the experience of this seemingly final entry of the franchise. Batman: Arkham Origins. Batman: Arkham Origins follows a younger version of the caped hero as Gotham's finest villains come together to bring him down and claim a lucrative bounty. The gameplay is mostly the same as Arkham City and majorly revolves around you exploring Gotham City and taking up missions and side activities. While it's still a solid game at its core with great combo-heavy combat and a rich rendition of Gotham City, it fails to innovate upon previous entries, which ultimately left series fans underwhelmed by a significant margin. However, the boss fights in Origins were easily the best in the entire Arkham series. Dead to Rights 2. A prequel to the first game that came out in 2002, Dead to Rights 2 sees players taking to the streets of a fictional city in order to fight back the criminal syndicate and ultimately bring it down. The game features a bullet time heavy combat system, as you fill enemies with red-hot lead while jumping in slow motion. Dead to Rights 2's story isn't the most polished either when compared to contemporaries of the genre like Max Payne, and as of such, it was mostly a mediocre and to some, even unnecessary prequel to a promising AA game. Silent Hill Origins. Climax Action's origin story of this long-running but now dormant survival horror franchise sees players controlling Travis Grady as he searches for a girl he rescued from a fire in the ominous town of Silent Hill. It might be the 5th entry of the series, but follows the Silent Hill rulebook to a fault, with puzzles and scares largely similar to the original, and doesn't add much new to the series, which made it a divisive entry for series fans. The Impatient. A prequel story to 2015's PS4 exclusive Until Dawn, The Impatient sees players facing a litany of horrors through a close-up first-person perspective in virtual reality. Set against the backdrop of a spooky sanitarium, you get up close and personal with a number of tense scenarios, where you have to make the right decisions in order to survive and ultimately see the game's conclusion. However, a repetitive gameplay loop becomes a major point of contention among those who played it, and today it stands at mediocre ratings across review aggregators. Sniper Elite 3. Developer Rebellion's third entry in the Sniper Elite franchise serves as a prequel to the second game. The story revolves around protagonist Carl Fairburn as he snipes out enemy encampments during World War II. Of course, the gameplay largely revolves around you trying to take down the opposition with as few shots as possible. It's a mostly solid game, sure, but a lack of mission variety, among other things, mars down its positives by a significant margin, which ultimately made it divisive among the fanbase. TUROK Evolution. Iguana Entertainment's TUROK series was a novel idea that reached the peaks of its popularity within its early titles, although the series' prequel, TUROK Evolution, would pull down the franchise's credibility by a significant margin when it was released in 2002. Upon release, the game was criticized on many aspects, such as gameplay mechanics and visuals. While still, by and large, a divisive entry, the consensus mostly skewed towards the negative, which ultimately spelled doom for the franchise until its 2008 reboot. Contract Jack. A prequel set between the events of No One Lives Forever and No One Lives Forever 2, Contract Jack sees players undertaking missions for the HARM criminal organization. The story isn't anything spectacular, and even the gameplay is standard first-person shooter. It's worth a try for those familiar with the series, but anyone other than that might be tempted to skip this game thanks to its underwhelming presentation and unoriginal gameplay. Uncharted Golden Abyss. Developed by Bend Studio for the PS Vita, Uncharted Golden Abyss is largely considered to be the most divisive game in the franchise that's known for having a consistent level of quality with every entry. Everything that works about the original is present in the game, although the game's scope is restrained to comfortably work within the hardware constraints of the Vita. In addition to the smaller scope, the narrative was deemed to be underwhelming by some, which ultimately caused divisiveness amongst fans of the series. So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below, and if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.